Everybody. So I these are just some quick takes on things I've been thinking this week. I get kind of busy. I keep thinking of making, just a 5-minute video every day. Like the old days, that used to be the limit on YouTube. Um, but instead, I'm making a summary of just some things I've been thinking about. Now, the first thing is about information. So it occurs to me this: I think the world is information. Like the physical structure of a molecule. Let's say two molecules of the same type, but they're in a different geometrical organization. One's twisted around this way at the moment, and the other one's twisted another way at the moment. Those differences are information. It's physical information. There's really information in that arrangement. And the reasoning goes something like this. Now, traditionally, it seems like people think information is, like in the mind. It's the data we have, like about something else. But the mind is a perfectly material chemical reaction. Whatever information is in the mind is, chemicals and bits flipped to certain ways. Um, if it's an electrical memory circuit, repulsing the memory or whatever it is, it's some physical arrangement of things. And so if that is information, then the thing itself holding also a structure representing itself and things that have happened to it, like a footprint in the sand. The sand is in an arrangement that has information about the foot that pressed in it, but that's also the state of the sand. The state of the sand is information about something else. It's also information about itself, basically. So I was thinking about this, and water is an interesting thing because it's this universal solvent, and the reason is over here is a kind of arrangement of water molecules. Water molecules can have this hydrogen bonding, and that's why they stick together so well. Um, It's like 20 times stronger than your ordinary, little electrostatic kind of bonding. So, two water molecules don't share electrons between, the pair of them, but they have this strong electrostatic attraction, magnetic attraction, because of the polarity of the water molecule. So they can form with this little triangle shape it has, they can form a great many kinds of, like, this is like a structure of, this was a picture going along with how there's a molecule of 119 water molecules. And basically they can create these strings and stack, and you've seen the crystal form in ice or the little layer of water tension. This is when they all get an arrangement. They're easily jostled. Now, if you drop a organic molecule or lots of molecules, salt, for example, into water, the salt is going to, plunge down there and bump into and be strong enough to break through some of these gray bonds that you see in that picture. And as it slides through, though, all of the magnets in the water around it being held in this big tension from the outer parts, they end up ripping that, salt or other compounds apart. Um, Now, since that's information, what they're doing is they're reducing information. When you break the chlorine from the sodium or whatever, uh, a characteristic wiggle goes out in these bonds. They're like little springs, and that shoots out. It's like a wave, but it's not a water wave that we would see. It'd be this little electrical wave through the water, like a micro current. As all the little molecules, or it would be an AC current, as they jiggle as a result of, oh, the salt breaks, click, and it would cause this little characteristic ripple. So that if you had a very delicate detector elsewhere in the water, you could catch those signals and realize, oh, the salt just broke down right now. Oh, I don't know, alcohol was just reduced or whatever. Now, the water doesn't have a sensor like that. So, but it just becomes chock full of information, and then life, which is this information focused phenomenon, comes from water. And in fact, all life forms, just as much as they have DNA, they all contain water and use the same chemical processes that occur naturally in water and the organic compounds that occur naturally in nature from natural regular processes. And it made me realize that life is a property of water. It's kind of like life is something, you know what I mean? Like water is wet, and sulfuric acid is corrosive, and water generates life. I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe it just generates it from concentrating information. I know a lot of people that are going to love that idea. All right. Next, free will. I had an idea about free will. Now, this is actually a couple years old, but I was thinking about it again this week. Because in quantum mechanics, we have a probabilism, right? So an anti-determinism. It's not that it's random. You roll the dice, you can just get 1 through 2 through 12, but it's not certain, it's not pre-certain, it's not determinism. And you point this out to people and they go, oh, even if you had that, that doesn't mean there's free will, so-called free will. Of course, I prefer willpower. Let's change it to willpower right now. Go over here to my little thing where I had to generate this. Well, just take a second. Don't worry about it. Compile. There you go. All right. Willpower. That better. But it doesn't mean that it just means things are random. You're still not in control. But I figured out a way that actually would work. If you have something that's truly random, like we think of it as dice, and you have a computer, totally deterministic thing. Now, I don't think the brain is a Turing machine kind of computer like the one shown here. But even if it was, I'm just saying, how could these two things create will? Well, here's how. A deterministic machine with set goals like surviving, like I want to eat, I want to win money at the craps table so I can pay the rent, I need a new pair of shoes. How could somebody determine to do that work with this random dice? Well, let's say when you get a 7, it's like, if you wanted a more natural example, it's like you're throwing rocks at tree branches. And you have, I forget what the chances are of getting 7. You have a 3 and 6 chance, you have whatever the 5 and 12 or something. I don't know. Let's say you need a 4, actually, something that's a low chance. Like, you're not very good at it. You're going to get a 1 in, 8 times or something. But you have to wait for this. You have to wait for this 4 to come up, right? And then you're going to get food, and you're rolling the dice. And you got to roll, and it's random. How possibly could it determine? You're determined to get that roll, but you can't control the dice. But there's probabilism. What do? You wait till it comes up 4. You keep rolling until it comes up 4. And if when it comes up 7, you got to put down another bit of energy, well, you just keep rolling until you get a 4. And so a deterministic process plus randomness does create will, because the deterministic process can wait and plot and alter the probability. And you could say, well, that's still not willpower. Well, I mean, I'm not really picky. I'm not trying to say, is willpower real? Is there? No, it appears that we get to make choices, and I'm investigating why does it appear that way. And this is one way it could appear that way. And since the deterministic process is taking probabilistic inputs, it's also not deterministic because it's accepting inputs that will change the outcome. So, yeah, so I was thinking about that. And then, um, oh, politics. I was thinking about politics. Um, well, I think of politics as political compromise. And Republic of Sandals just commented. I just thought I'd bring this up. Hi Pyrrho. Well, hi Republic. Um, I think of politics as political compromise, and that this is really what we need to do. This is the point, and I look really hard, way more than a lot of progressives or conservatives look for compromise. I mean, I am willing to compromise on things that I fundamentally disagree with. I think that a pro-life stance takes away medical autonomy, which is more important, more fundamental from women. I think it leads to bad outcomes where we know that people will still seek abortions and they'll just get very dangerous. There'll be a toll anyway. But I could imagine, hey, if we can't agree on what's murder, then it's supposed to be the advantage of having a federal system, meaning a federated system where, the stuff like it is states that really make most of the murder laws, if not all of them, I think, well, not quite all of them, like murdering a federal agent or something, but, your basic murder laws, that's at the state level. So I could compromise on something like abortion in that regard. I don't trust the right wingers right now. Like they wouldn't take that and be happy with it. They'd just say, "Ooh, we got this far. Let's make it illegal everywhere and whatnot." But my instinct is towards compromises like that, which might just be a dysfunctionally codependent kind of instinct, as it happens. But that is my instinct. The problem right now is that conservatives and many actually on the left, conspiracy thinkers also on the left and whatnot, they don't want to have compromises. And I'm sympathetic to that from the point of view of like, there's a lot of these things where I don't want to have a compromise. I mean, I was shocked during the Bush years that we started debating torture. Like, maybe torture is okay. Now, there had been torture in secret and, certain, you know, Army Ranger kind of Navy SEAL people would go in and all kinds of nasty things we knew, and there were death squads. So there was torture, and they were developing all that, and they had to be in the closet. Well, they burst out of the closet, and suddenly we had this debate. And it's like, well, I mean, if it's still going to go on, it has to burst out of the closet. But for us to actually we should have been arguing about how do we clamp down on this and make it actually illegal like it's supposed to have been ever since World War II. Instead, we're like, yeah, maybe you should, and let's make a TV show where we show how good of an idea it is. And what's the compromise from someone like me that doesn't want to torture and people that do? Half the torture? I mean, no, you can't. I mean, it's more like I want to do good things for people of the world, and you want to do torture them. So let's do neither. Let's don't do any good things for anybody and don't torture them. I would still say, well, okay, I can imagine that. If you would stop torturing in the world right now and stop all of the war, no war, just police actions where a crime has been committed, uh, and if you're not sure, I don't know what you do about that. This is a difficult hypothetical. Um, but in the hypothetical, okay, because I'd really like us to stop, bombing people that are, innocent people and people that are pro-life, but you can bomb a pregnant woman. That's different. So we're in a really difficult place where it seems like the political opponents will only respond to force. We just have to force them. So like deplatforming or whatever that stuff, it's like um, there is no let's be reasonable and figure a middle ground. You don't get everything you want. I don't know. It's too different, I guess. And I see a little bit from that side. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not for a little bit of torture. I really want to stop all the torture. I'm not for the baby prisons. So, but Obama did a little bit of that. Yeah, not as much, and I was against that as well. As far as I'm concerned, there should be an Office of Presidential Investigation at all times of government that's their whole job is to investigate our leaders, make things transparent that are being hidden. And we could have a war trial. I would like to have a war crimes tribunal and try all of the presidents of the United States going back in history, including the dead ones. Why not? What do we have to lose? They're already dead. We didn't do it. Let's get it all on the table. So that's the direction I'm coming from, but no agreement. Now, Mueller is an interesting situation. The conservatives are just being so disingenuous. That if this came out about Hillary or Obama, they'd be freaking the fuck out. More than Rachel Maddow is. I mean, look what they did with Benghazi for 5 years, and it just kept coming up null, null, null. Or the emails. Yes, there was some impropriety, but nothing prosecutable. And did they go, oh, I guess nothing prosecutable, big nothing burger, we better stop talking about it? No, they didn't. Um, so, they're just trying to do a big fake out. Mueller obviously had to do the investigation. I mean, there were reports of these of contacts with the Russians. Then they were saying there was no contact. Seemed like they were lying. They got caught in some lies. We had to look into it. When President Trump fired Comey and said, "Oh, it's because of the Russia investigation." Yeah, we had to look into it. I mean, maybe he's playing 20-dimensional chess, and it's like, make us look into something where you're not going to be as guilty as everybody thinks and sets the expectations. But as far as I'm concerned, he was lying about his Trump deal. They had a bunch of things. And, it's obviously good we had the investigation, and it's obviously uh, true that Trump is guilty of many things that presidents are not supposed to be guilty of. Many of which I think are crimes. But I'm not as concerned of that. It's also true that there's an overwroughtness. Like, I haven't liked Rachel Maddow for years. Never really did, but turned against her back when she was shilling for Michael Weiner when he was obviously guilty. She's like, yeah, come on my show, whatever. I don't care. To me, it was like, oh, yeah, I see. Just a side player, meaning she's always on a side. Um, so that goes overboard. But it had to be investigated. But I'm not. It's not my main thing. My main thing that I've said many times is the emoluments is a big thing. You're not allowed to have foreigners coming and renting condos in your buildings while you're president and taking 100 people in your social security, your secret service, down to your own hotel and paying yourself. Yeah, you're supposed to go to a competitor's hotel. If you have to pay the government money wherever you go, you're not supposed to deal it back to yourself. It says so right in the Constitution. You can't take it from foreigners. You also can't. There's limits on what you can do internally. You definitely can't take it from foreign governments, and it's in there on purpose. It's not like they didn't know how that might work. It's because it's a way to get people money, bribe money, like launder it. Like, oh, well, they're just staying in my hotel. Yeah, they could just stay there more than they used to. Is the price higher? Are there more people from foreign governments staying there? Yeah. So to me, that's a total violation. And again, it goes beyond Trump. They all do this a little. They all try to do this a little, and Trump's just trying to go so far out of the lines that it's like, well, this would break the whole system. But yeah, I think we should clamp down on everybody. You should not be able to take any payments from foreign governments or domestic people. That's a conflict of interest. Now, again, with the compromise thing, the right wingers know this. They're like, oh, uh, Bill took some money for his speech, and then they got the money in their and then they pay his salary, and then, oh, and then the company that sold had her idea, and there she's related, and look at it, Yeah, and I agree that that's shady. That should not really be possible. What Trump's doing is 1,000 times worse. It's not even any money going to charity out of it. It's not okay because these crooked other politicians have done it. All the I'm sitting here watching, you know, president after president, all in my lifetime, and as far as you can see, everybody war crimes, crimes of personal enrichment, just stuff that was illegal at the time already. Not like slavery when slavery was legal, but like breaking the slavery laws, even though it was legal, doing something extra, always going on. And you could just go prosecute all of that if you wanted. But I've been watching all this, and people try to go, oh, well, there was a little tiny thing over here in Obama, too. So, hey. No, I didn't like the little tiny thing then, too, but this is also bigger. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And the emoluments clause in the Constitution, but people can't be bothered to learn a new word that's old. Bigger to me is also the environmental and business law that's just being fucked over. Broken, but also with the way our system works, there's so much, personal discretion in the president and in the executive branch that they're able to rape a lot of the. We don't have an Environmental Protection Act that we should have. We have just the agency, which means the president can pump it up or down, which I guess is a way to keep it balanced going back and forth. But that's not what's happened. It just allows it to get raped and raped. So we have these laws, and they're stressed or pushed to their minimum through like there's law says this, but that doesn't mean you have to spend money looking into whether that's happening. But the law is being broken, and they're just not. And this and the business law, I think this is a bigger thing. But it's not like if Russia wasn't in the news, they'd be covering this. They never cover this. Um, it's just not their style. Now, the obstruction, it's obvious he did obstruct. And the whole idea of, well, there's no obstruction if there's no underlying crime. First of all, we didn't prove there was no underlying crime as far as I'm concerned, or the law would be concerned. But that's what we're going with. He did the investigation. We didn't find it so far, so whatever. He's off the hook for that. But that has nothing to do with obstruction. I mean, obstruction is where you're trying to cover up the crime. If you do obstruction successfully and cover up the crime, and that Mueller report says many things that were deleted and obstructions and people not told not to talk and people told to keep their story straight and stuff. When obstruction of justice succeeds, then you can't prove the crime. And so you're saying that I could obstruct justice all I want, and if I succeed, then it doesn't count as obstruction. That's not how it works. Because the obstruction obstructs you from getting the justice. It doesn't prove that there was no crime. So, especially since also the report is like, well, they didn't have to coordinate. They were on their side. They liked it. They tried to coordinate. Didn't need to. Whatever. But, who knows? I mean, it's pretty clear they coordinated to me because of the whole sharing of the polling data and the Cambridge Analytica stuff, and the ads and the targeting of ads. That's a circle. But whatever, they're not going to go to jail for it. But the obstruction is there, and one reason we have obstruction of justice is because if you obstruct justice, you might succeed, and that's still going to be a crime. You murder someone and you obstruct justice such that there's not enough evidence to hold up against you in court of law, but they can get you on obstructing justice and hiding evidence, then they get you on that. That's how that works. And you know it. If a Democrat does it, you no trouble knowing it, the Republicans. So what you need to do is make choices. It appears we have willpower. It doesn't appear free. It appears a lot of stuff's by chance and just out of our control, and then we're limited, and we start in one country and with the language and these kinds of things. But we do make choices along the way, and it takes energy. It's not free. It takes energy. And it appears that we're making choices. And the question that a lot of people want to say is, are we really? To me, the question is, why does it appear that we're making choices? We don't know. Whatever we just assume that we got because we were born and we have an idea of, here's probably why. It's even subconscious. That's probably not it. But maybe follow that lead. You know, why does it appear that we can make choices? That's the question. Um, and the answer in the meantime is we'll keep making them. That's how you're going to find out. Now, I've seen a bunch of concern trolling because I subscribe to a bunch of these right winger types. Um, like Lord of Patriarchy is one of the like low subscriber guys I watch. And they just do this concern trolling about, oh yeah, you shouldn't impeach, just give up on impeachment and give up on the Mueller report. It's like, yeah, because that's what Trump would do, right? You love when Trump bitches somebody out on unnecessarily on Twitter. Har 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 har, he really takes the piss out of them. But the liberals aren't supposed to do it. It's just kind of a bully kind of thing. It's just the same thing with the crimes and the fact that if this report was about Obama, it's like, or like OJ and murder. OJ isn't saying murder should be legal, but he wants to get away with it. And that's what they want to do. You want to push, push, push and impeach Bill Clinton and do every single thing, and you'll never worry about it, even when it does blow up in your face. Look how many times you fuckers have shut down the government. Every time you think it's going to work for you, and there's a backlash, but you make some gains as well. Like Bill Clinton might have had two terms, but you can't tell me it didn't hurt Gore, and Gore had to worry about should I even use Bill Clinton on the campaign trail. People just want to forget about him. So that air can hang around, whereas on the Republican side, a bunch of silly failures, added up to what we see now with how crazy right wing, Tea Party had managed to succeed and get their nuttiness into the halls of government. Their science denying bullshit, craziness, lack of history, nonsense, racism worked pretty well for them. But I just believe in law and order, so I don't really care if there's a backlash. We need to start having law and order. What he's done needs to be impeached. Uh, where would I draw the line? Well, like I said, I mean, I think pretty much every president has broken the law. You might have to make a law that they get to break some laws. Well, at least it would be a new law, and they, give them more freedom if they have to. I don't really believe they do have to be war criminals and self-deal, no-bid contracts to companies they were formerly the CEO of and all that bullshit. I don't think so. And I think the Clintons are a pretty mild version of this regular kind of corruption. I mean, at least they funneled some of the money to actual charities, and that's been audited and checked. And the money went out there and helped with AIDS and some of these things in Africa. And it's like people could say, well, that's just a cover because they're Chelsea Clinton's getting $500,000 a year salary or whatever, 350,000, whatever it is. Yeah, well, at least they're covering for it a little bit. Trump's just fucking stuffing it in his pants. He's going to stay at his own place, and the government pays for his whole entourage, pays him to stay where him wants to stay. What? So, the last thing is free speech. I believe very strongly in free speech, but I see a lot of this whining in these anti-social justice warriors. And when they're talking about, oh, and he's gotten Dankula's gotten off Twitter, and oh, poor Milo, and Alex Jones can't seem to be on Instagram and face the file. First of all, I don't remember you being so socialist about private businesses, gay cakes and all that. So fuck you on that. See, you're not going to help us when we want private businesses to have to be fair and stuff. You don't believe in free. I don't even think you would believe in free speech. I don't think you're protecting the free speech of Muslims and stuff and immigrants. I think not. You're just whiny little children that will try to get the benefit of some sort of social good or empathetic right or entitlement that you think you're entitled to. Because even if you're going to go to jail for your speech, you're free to speak anyway. Somebody might put you in jail, but if you're a man about it, you could still fucking do it. Nobody can actually stop you. You're just asking for permission. And that's fine, except for that you're not going to return the favor. The ACLU protected the free speech right of the KKK for years, and they've been just treated like they're just SJWs, want to fuck over and they hate white people and blah, blah, blah. I've heard so many conservative people over the last 30 years badmouth the ACLU. Oh, and now they're going, oh, ACLU, why'd you stop protecting us? Because fuck you. At least it's hurting the Nazis, right? All right, cheers, everybody.